time for public comment? I do not.
We had that one from like weeks ago, but he's not here, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can pull that out.
All right, welcome everybody. It is Tuesday, July 12th, 2022. You are at the Wausau City Council chambers. Welcome. And this is a Common Council of the City of Wausau meeting. The first item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'll go ahead and join me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next up, we have roll call. Guessing you can confirm for me that everybody's here.
Yes. We have 11. Oh, I can put myself on. We have 11 members present.
Excellent. Thank you. Next up, we'll go straight to our presentation. I would invite our Community Development Director, Liz Brodek, to give us an update on the mall. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for allowing me to address you today and give you a brief update. This update is really just intended to be a really brief overview to kind of let you know where things are going, that we are moving forward, and that we're planning to come to you for more guidance and as we get more information. Anecdotally, this is kind of perfectly timed. I was just on the phone with someone who lives half a block away, and he said, "I don't know that anything is happening." And I said, "I assure you things are. They are just behind the scenes right now." So basically, I provided a memo in your packet. I handed out a list that Mr. Trecadorzi, the managing director of WAS, provided about the T-wall selection criteria, and I will email the clerk to make sure that that's in the packet for the public after this meeting. But basically, like I said, I just want to assure you that city staff has been working diligently with both T-wall Enterprises, who is the developer that WAS Opportunity Zone, also known as WAS, selected for the mall redevelopment site. As a reminder, I think more to the public than to any of the council members, WAS is the owner of the mall site and was in charge of selecting a developer for that site. I should also clarify that T-wall has been selected for 2 phases of the site, not the entirety of the site. I think the site is intended to be developed in about 5 phases total. So this is just the first 2 of potentially 5 or potentially more, or give or take. So, like I said, I provided a list of criteria that WAS used in selecting T-wall as the developer for the project. I do also note here that the T-wall established a new LLC for the project called the Foundry on Third Development LLC, and that will be listed as the developer in the development agreement. We did receive a draft development agreement from T-wall on May 20th of this year. We are not, as I noted in the memo, it is not included because we are still in negotiations. And then upon receiving that, we directed T-wall to complete a TIF application, which they did, and we received basically about May 25th, got it out of the system around June 2nd because it was stuck in transmission. This was the very first electronic TIF application that we received. So there were, of course, a few glitches to be expected with that. We had engaged Eller's public finance advisors for the gap analysis, or the but-for test. The but-for test, as I note on the memo, it basically means that but for the use of TIF assistance, the project would not occur as proposed within the same time frame or with the same level of value to the city. And we hire independent third-party financial reviewers to conduct this analysis because they are experts at it, and it provides an objective third-party perspective. So we are waiting on receiving that report from Ellers, and we will get that to you, to this council when we have it. We have been preemptively scheduling meetings internally with our various departments. I note in here that we engage DPW, legal, finance, and economic development as entities in this development agreement discussions. Basically, especially every project's a little bit different with who we have to engage in terms of department personnel, but this one is a little bit more straightforward than some of the others. So we're just doing DPW / engineering, legal, finance, and economic development at this point. And I know it sounds a little trite, but I feel it was rather necessary to include in the memo to note that it is summer in Wisconsin, and between our internal and external staff and legal counsel, as well as the developer, some of these meetings have been a little bit slower to get scheduled simply because we all have summer vacations that are going on. So I just wanted to basically make a note of that so that you are aware that even though maybe it takes a bit to get a meeting on a calendar, we are continuing to schedule those so that we can keep this moving forward. And then at the last page, I just note a summary of what has been received and what our progress has been so far. So we have a draft development agreement. We have not responded to that in substance in any way. A TIF application, and then we've had discussions with the developer on on parking plans for partial use of the Sears ramp, which will be addressed in a different agreement, as many other businesses in downtown Wausau have parking agreements with the city for different parking ramps or publicly owned city parking lots. So like I said, that'll be addressed later. And then we have an internal and external development agreement discussion that are scheduled. So like I said, just wanted to give you an update to let you know that things are moving forward. And that's all I have.
Thank you. I think it is my desire, and I don't mean to spring this on you, Alder McElhaney, but I think it's probably this is a really good project to have maybe a committee of the whole type discussion where we can really get into the nitty gritty of this, since there's a lot of public interest and a lot of questions. And I think that it surpasses other committees too, so it might be a good opportunity for us to call one of those committee of the whole meetings. We can work on maybe getting that scheduled and having the right things going. I think
As long as we can have both WAS and TWAL here at the same time to answer questions.
Yep, we can definitely arrange that. Yeah, I like that idea.
All right. Thank you very much. We will go ahead and move on to, I'm sorry.
I guess I don't get to speak. I had a question, but
Okay.
save it for the call meeting then.
Okay, is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. Alrighty, we have public comment, pre-registered citizens for matters appearing on the agenda and other public comment. I didn't see anybody. I don't think the clerk has anybody. Next up is the Board of Public Works insurance claims, January 2022 to March 2022. They are in your packet. They are now on file. Next up is our consent agenda then. We have file number 220501 through file number 030311. I would entertain a motion. Oh. I know it's been a while. I have a motion by Watson and a second by Larson. Any discussion on these? Alder Dinney.
Yes, is this an appropriate spot to get a correction or at least an amendment to the minutes to include some of the discussion?
Yep, you can ask your colleagues if that's the desire of the body. Yep. Yep, all right, so the minutes are what you want? Is it just the minutes?
Just the minutes.
Okay, all right, so we're voting on everything but the minutes. Any further? I'm not seeing anybody else requesting to speak.
You may begin to vote.
I think that's on.
Motion carries 11-0.
All right, thank you. All right, we're on to the minutes here. That's technically file number 220501. I would entertain a motion. I have a motion by Henke and a second by Rasmussen. Alder Gisselman. Oh, well,
Did you go?
Sorry.
nope. Alder Dinney.
Okay, I just was looking at, I sent an email to the effect of conversation we had on the valuation of 180 Wausau Avenue. And the corrected amount was left out, so I was looking to have that included.
Okay, so
Go
there's
ahead.
a motion?
I didn't do a lot of research on it, but I provided the tax bill from 2019 that shows a $416,000 value and apparently someone else has done some further research.
Okay, so we have a motion, a desire to change the minutes to update the valuation of 180 East Wausau, I'm guessing.
That was a different motion.
I'm looking at Ann.
Yeah, can we find it in the minutes? Do you know where this was discussed? I'm looking myself, Alder Denny. So you believe that, I mean, we can't update it and add information that wasn't discussed at that meeting, but if it was discussed at that meeting and left out of the minutes, then you're asking that it be included in the minutes? That's
Okay,
the way you want to amend it,
I would
correct?
ask that the commentary by Rick Rubo be added to include that the conversation around the value of $37,500 was later corrected by Mr. Rubo to the number of $382,000 for a better cost comparison than what we had.
All right, so if I'm hearing you, we want an addition of summary of what our city assessor, Rick Rubo, said of the valuation of that property.
Correct.
Okay. Do I have a second? Okay. If you would, okay. Yeah, can you push?
Yes.
Okay, so,
I have button choices, but none that are relevant.
this is a fun new thing that we've entered. So, okay. Do we have a time? Okay, the clerk
We
is,
have a motion, a second.
does
They
he
would
have to
need-
push an amendment?
Yeah, do you have an amend button?
Yeah,
Alder Denny, do you have an
Alder-
amend? Oh, here we go.
okay. All right, so we have an, you got that? In a
Motion
second.
to amend, here we go.
Okay, we're just gonna put it here. Well,
To add summary.
by city assessor. Yeah. Yeah.
Regarding, okay. Value pricing of valuation
Yeah.
data. Was it 1080 East Wausau?
180.
It's file 220605.
Yeah, it's. Did I take your? No.
No, I'm,
Okay. All right. She's got it.
okay.
We have a motion. We have an amendment and a second. Okay. Any discussion on this?
No, I don't.
There's a lot of technology going on here.
Alder Rasmussen.
Alder Rasmussen, why don't we have
Thank you.
give your comments while
Thank you. I am fine with an amendment to the minutes to add some detail, but I do want to request that the clerk's office make sure that it's an accurate depiction of whatever Mr. Rubo actually said on the video or on the audio recording, because there's been much discussion about the value of that building, and I think he offered one amount at the meeting and then subsequently maybe offered other values. So the minutes of the meeting need to be an accurate depiction of whatever got said just that day. And so whatever we found out in the following days is irrelevant to the minutes. So if we could go back and view the video and put in whatever figures Rick actually gave that day, then I'm fine with it.
Anyone else wish to speak on this item? Alrighty, so we're voting right now on the amendment. So all of those in favor, well, you can push your buttons.
You may begin voting. Motion carries 9-2.
Alrighty, now we have the minutes as amended.
Any discussion on that?
I'm not seeing anybody. If anybody has any comments, I'm not seeing any.
You may begin voting. Motion carries 9-2.
Alrighty, we are moving on. We're on to file number 220703, mayor's appointments. You have in your packet two of them. John Schrader, replacing Paul Kate on the Sustainability, Energy, and Environment Committee, and Edward J. Caldwell replacing Paul Zuski. I would entertain a motion. I have a motion by Watson and a second by Herbst. Any discussion? I'm not seeing it.
You may begin voting. Motion carries 11-0.
Alrighty. We're now on to file number 031105. It's a resolution from the Economic Development Committee approving the Fifth Amendment to the Development Agreement with the Entrepreneurial and Education Center, Inc. I would entertain a motion. I have a motion by Watson and a second by Henke. Any discussion? I'm not seeing anybody requesting to speak.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 11-0.
All right, thank you. We are now on to file number 211109B. This is a resolution from the Finance Committee approving and adopting the budget for American Rescue Plan Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund funded projects. This one is for Community Partners Campus. I would enter, it looks like I have a motion from Rasmussen and a second from Watson. They are quick on the draw. Is there any discussion? I'm not seeing anybody.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 11-0.
Alrighty, thank you. Now we're on to file number 211109C. It's another resolution from the Finance Committee approving and adopting the budget for American Rescue Plan Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funded projects, wastewater screening improvements. I would entertain a motion. I have a motion by Denny and a second by Lukens. Any discussion here? I'm not seeing any.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 10-1.
Alrighty. Next up, we have file number 211109D, another resolution from the Finance Committee approving and adopting the budget for American Rescue Plan Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund funded projects. This is the Stormwater Lift Station and Rehabilitation Project. I would entertain, looks like I have a motion by Herbst and a second by Lukens. Any discussion? I'm not seeing any.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 10-1.
Alrighty, thank you. We are now on to file number 211109E. It's another resolution from the Finance Committee approving and adopting the budget for American Rescue Plan Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund funded projects, homebuyer education, counseling, and closing assistance. I have a motion by Watson and a second by Lukens. Any discussion? Yes, Alder McElhaney.
Thank you. The packet was a little skimpy, so I did talk to Tammy Stratz over and over and over. I am not supporting this, and I want to just explain why. It is probably a very good program. Tammy and the group do great work. That is not the issue. But when we got ARPA money in, we talked, I think it was last term, about making sure that we could touch as many people as possible. With our ARPA funds, I think we're kind of straying away from that. I talked about this is for home buyers that are getting, some kind of a loan at a bank, and we are providing we're providing counseling, and then if they get the counseling, we give them a $500 incentive to get the counseling. I think that is a very narrow scope of people. I think that we have water issues that are number one in our community, and we have a big gap. And even though this is only $34,000, that should be going to that gap, because that water issue and those water rates touch every person in this city and beyond, every water user, and that includes low-income people. So I am not supporting this, not that it's not a good plan, but I think we're nickel and diming some of our ARPA money, and I'm a little disappointed. Thank you.
Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. I had similar thoughts when we first considered this, though, and then talking with Tammy and also her presentation that occurred in the Finance Committee. One of our goals really is to help our low to moderate income residents find sustainable long-term housing solutions, and that doesn't always mean renting. And I think that our goal should be that, when people are trying to become homeowners in our community and they need that education and that assistance to become smart home buyers. This was a relatively small ask that I think can make an impact in a community that would have a similar impact to the things that we saw when there was a robust effort undertaken shortly after the recession by the Get Smart Wausau Coalition and things like that, where people are getting some help with that home buying process. They're becoming homeowners, but they're educated and they've got both eyes open when they're going into that process. And so I think that by and large, we will get some impact for populations that we want to serve with ARPA from this program. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Watson.
And I think also something that came up in the Affordable Housing Task Force from our banking sector was that a lot of people that may be wanting to become home buyers don't have that base knowledge, and this particular program would help that and improve those situations and to have those long-lasting home options. I mean, it really is sort of like the goal of ARPA is to get people into homes, and I think, we want to increase rental stock and housing stock, but this is a small ask just to help get a person into a home.
Thank you. Alder Dinney.
Thank you. I would echo that from the task force, housing task force. Education seems to be a lack for a lot of potential home buyers as to where to go, what the resources are, how to budget, just the basics of what it costs to own a home. So the fewer people we have failing in that process, the better we're going to be. So it's a small ask, and I think it's a good program. I'll support it.
Thank you. Alder Killian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And one reason I voted no on prior ARPA items this evening is because, there is a very broad bucket from the government that Ms. Grote has told us about in terms of lost revenue, where really a lot fits into that. But I think just because the program allows for it does not make it necessarily prudent or judicious to use these funds in that manner. So essentially, while it's allowed, it creates the optics of a slush fund in terms of not using these perhaps as they were intended to be used. And I think, yes, counseling to get people into affordable housing would be beneficial if we had affordable housing. So at this point, it would be like going into a vegetarian restaurant and trying to order a steak. We are not in the position right now. We should be using these funds. We had $15 million to help people who needed it during this pandemic and from the outfall of the pandemic, including the economic fallout of it. So I think we need to have money put into affordable housing with ARPA, like Alder Watson and the task force had recommended. We need ARPA funds to be applied to homelessness, and to date, I see none of that. So, yes, counseling wouldn't necessarily be a negative thing, but these are urgent issues. We have relevant funds, and I've seen nothing to date demonstrating that we've used them to move the needle on those things. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder McElhaney.
I just want to say I agree that counseling to help people not make bad choices into housing is a good thing. It's just I do not see it as a taxpayer issue. I've gotten a lot of calls about what's happened. We're down to $4 million in ARPA funds out of $15 million, and I can't point to very many projects. That's scary. This was supposed to be transformational. I know a lot of things have come up, but this is why I made it very clear to Tammy that I thought this was a good program. I guess the incentivizing to please come into counseling, we'll give you $500. That's another thing that I'm just like, counseling is one thing, but we're giving 25,000 of this is for grants. So I guess, we have to make priorities, and even, I just want everyone to know, I think that they do yeoman's work, and I think that, affordable housing is good, but I also think that a bank is the one giving the loan, not us. We're not loaning that money out.
the bank is, and I think that they certainly are probably the first person to be able to educate the person on this due to the fact that they have their financials in front of them. If we need, I mean, I wouldn't even mind that just the HUD funding or the HUD administrative costs of doing the counseling. But what I got an email back is, well, we want to incentivize to see if they'll come. I don't see that as ARPA money. So I'm still not supporting this, and whatever happens, happens.
Okay. Thank you. Alder Killian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just as a follow-up to my first comment, I hope that we see some ARPA requests in front of us forwarded by Finance Committee that go to affordable housing and homelessness, because again, this feels detached from the appropriate use of these funds. Most of the requests we've seen in recent sessions, in recent months, and we just heard an update about potential millions in taxpayer funds for a census block group that is 77% low income. So yes, let's start to use these funds appropriately. It's certainly needed. Thank you.
Thanks. I just want to clarify and maybe ask the question, how much have we appropriated to date?
So prior to these resolutions, the 3.8 million
Okay.
on your agenda tonight is to return about 80,000 from park project, so that
Okay.
would then increase that.
Okay, so about 3.8 million is what we've appropriated to date.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Alder Gisselman.
Yes, thank you. I think there's a larger agenda item here, whether it be done in the committee of the whole or where, but I think that the city council, most of this has been coming through the finance office and the finance committee, but I think we have to give opportunities for these ARPA funds for other city, I think there's city council members who maybe have ideas. I think that there's some ideas that have been floating, large projects with regard to this community that are out there, but yet they really have had no opportunity to be fleshed out. And I would think that there should be a larger issue, a larger discussion with regard to how we go forth with ARPA funds. These are specific issues, but I think more of a general agenda item with speaking to where do we go from here with regard to some of these ARPA funds. City council members may have some ideas this evening, or other members of the community. I think we should have an opportunity to hear these before the money's gone, and we haven't been able to listen to the community.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. You know, I guess on behalf of the Finance Committee, I will respond to that by saying all of the Finance Committee meetings are open public meetings, and much like our budget workshops, every single council member is welcome to attend our meetings. They're welcome to offer input and feedback, and they're welcome to interact with us whether or not they're a voting member of the committee. And that has never changed. And so and every month, we have ARPA as a standing item on our agenda, and we rank and score every one of those requests, and we have a litany of those that we have kind of put a pin in and held off on approving them to be judicious with that funding intentionally. Separate from that, at the council retreat just a week or two ago, we recognized as a group that we know that we're going to have some type of deficit on the long-term PFAS water solution, and we all seem to be of the mind, and the Finance Committee tonight talked about the fact that maybe we need to put a pin in future ARPA ranking and scoring, at least for the short term, to figure out what that difference is going to be, so that we can use perhaps the rest of the ARPA funding to eliminate an impact to ratepayers. So that said, if organizations in the community, if council members, whoever has ideas that they want to use ARPA on, ARPA requests come through department heads. Get with a department head, get those ideas in, get to the Finance Committee, whatever it is. We will certainly consider ideas and requests, but right now, we have talked about maybe putting a little bit of a hold on some of that ARPA, and we have seeded low-income housing projects. We did offer an allotment to Gorman. They're waiting on HUD credits, so those projects are coming. There's future housing projects that would very much like ARPA dollars. Tonight, we talked about maybe substituting an ARPA request for TID financing for a street. I mean, these discussions are happening twice a month in the Finance Committee. Come join us and hear that discussion that we're having. But, the Finance Committee handles the money within this organization, and that process that we use is well-placed in that committee. And the Committee of the Whole can't make a final decision on anything other than making a recommendation to a standing committee that's already doing the work. And so, everyone's welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Killian, this would be your third time speaking, so unless there's any opposition to him speaking a third time.
It's a question, Madam
Okay.
Chair, and my understanding is that doesn't count toward the speaking
You just pushed your
requirement.
request to speak button, so I
Thank
don't
you.
have any clue.
Okay, thank you. So my question, just based on my colleagues' statements, is if council members then attend the Finance Committee, will those ideas be put in for scoring, which goes to my second question. Is it true that an ARPA request has to go through a department head? Those would be my two questions.
So, do you want to speak to the process? I mean, that's the process we've developed, was coming through the department heads. But, I mean, I don't know if you have a preference.
So I think, Finance Committee, and I believe we brought it back to council too on the process that we were going to follow. And, the federal government is interested in these being transparent processes, and there's, a lot of red tape and documentation that needs to be followed. So the applications reflect the expenditure categories that are eligible for ARPA. So we do want an application completed. And so that was, I guess, what drove the process that it would be, that those applications would be developed internally as far as completed, just to ensure that they met all of the requirements for that documentation. So I think that, the thought process was that departments, if it was within their wheelhouse, so community development obviously would be the ones that would do housing, homelessness, those types of social programs. If it was infrastructure, you would talk to Eric for those types of requests. And so I think that was, I guess, the thought process initially.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Denny.
So I don't know if it's appropriate to take midstream lessons learned here, and maybe, this is one of the things I was concerned with right from the get on this program, is we're piecemealing ARPA requests in, so the very first at-bat, first staff member who had his stuff together and got up here may have had a good shot, and a idea that hasn't hit yet could be 10 times better, and we haven't really given thought to how do we manage it. Can we have a committee of the whole and get some readjust on our trajectory on this ARPA process?
I mean, you can have a committee of the whole whenever you want. It's your council too, so we can decide that. I will say we did have some listening sessions about ARPA, and we had a couple of ideas folded in. Oh, go ahead.
Just in reality, I think the first requests weren't funded. Those were two from the police department for sit-stand desks and some cameras to monitor traffic or whatever. And so those first requests actually were not funded, but I see your point.
Okay, Alder Lukens.
Thank you. To this agenda item specifically, I also think that I really like the idea of it. I was in favor of it, and definitely support the work of the department. Since looking at that and giving more thought also to the ARPA process and And I guess I'm in agreement with Alder McElhaney as far as, needing to use those funds to help as many people as possible. What I'm wondering is, are there any other programs in the community that would offer something like that? Like, are there any other options? I mean, I guess I'm thinking of, are there, not that NTC might offer that, but sometimes there are other community programs that might offer assistance like this. And is it possible for the department to see if there's anything else like that? Because I definitely think that the counseling for home buyers is extremely important. But I'm just wondering if there are any other programs.
Thank you. I'm going to invite Tammy Stratz maybe to address that question and maybe others.
Thank you. Yeah, quite the lively discussion here. To answer your question, yes and no. There's two different degrees. Mortgage lenders sometimes do the counseling. A new buyer comes in, they'll say, here's my financials, can I afford a house? They'll say, yeah, you can afford a house for $150,000 or you can afford a house for $60,000 or whatever. But they don't go into the depths that we go into when it comes to being a HUD certified counseling agency, which the city of Wausau is. Thank you, because you supported us to do that. We are the only agency in town, in the city, in Marathon County, in Lincoln County. We're getting requests from different counties because nobody else offers it. The question of, can we have other programs funded? Because we are a HUD certified housing counseling agency, I can never say it right, we do have the opportunity of applying for funds through HUD. However, we don't have the capacity, and we cannot prove that we have the capacity at this point because we aren't getting the numbers in. So we've been advertising, we've been doing stuff because we've only been an agency for 2+ years. And we went through staff changes, and that's not your problem. So we're getting our name out there, we're getting the product out there, and closing costs are increasing with buying a house. You know what the price of houses cost. So yes, $500 doesn't seem like a lot, but it's amazing how we get people to come in for the housing counseling that is required for some of these bank programs, and it has to be a HUD certified counselor, and we're getting them the day before closing. That's too late. They don't even have a clue that they needed to buy homeowners insurance ahead of time. They have no clue about a lot of stuff that we get frustrated with because nobody knows. If you've never bought a house before, you don't know. So that's where this program came from, that we're trying to increase our database of getting our services out there. If we throw a little carrot at it so that we can get more home buyers in the city of Wausau. I heard a statistic not too long ago that we are on a cusp of how many homeowners we are versus landlord rentals, and I want to say it was like 54% homeowners. That's ridiculous. We need more homeowners. So we can do whatever we can do to increase that. I think we should. Yes, I'm a little passionate, sorry.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments before this vote? Okay, it looks like Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. Just a thought, I guess, is, if we all still have questions about this and we think that there are maybe other ARPA-worthy things that we want to think about, we have 5 or 6 other things on the list that we just have sitting kind of with a pin in them for later. If you think that you want to put this program back in that list that's kind of sitting waiting, you could refer this back to finance to get that to happen. It's up to you guys. So if someone wanted to do a refer back, you wouldn't have to approve this tonight. You could put it back on our list, and once we know a little more about the long-term water solution and whatnot, if there's an opportunity to go back to that list again and maybe pick a few things off later towards the end of the process, if that's something you want to do, you could do it.
Okay, the option is there for folks, if anybody would like to. I'm not seeing anybody pushing their button, so I think we're ready to vote. Oh, Alder Watson.
I guess I just had a question. If we vote it down, does that literally kill the option of this program going forward?
I'm looking.
Yes, unless you're going to follow, well, you'll have to follow your council rules, so once it's defeated, you'd have to bring it back either at the next meeting for reconsideration by a party on the prevailing side, or once it's defeated, I think you can't bring it back.
Is it 30 days?
Yeah, and then a second time, it's done forever.
I actually would like to refer it back to finance then.
All right, so we
Do
have
I
a,
need to withdraw my motion?
well, does she need to withdraw it, or can that be a new, like a?
No, she can just make
Yep.
it a refer back.
Okay, so we
and
have
can
a,
vote
a
on that.
motion to refer back to committee.
Yep.
Is there anybody who would like to second that? You might have to. Yes, okay, Lukens. So we now have a new motion on the table, and that is to refer this item back to the Finance Committee. Any discussion? I'm sorry, I'm waiting for the clerk to catch up. But if anybody has anything they'd like to say. Or have we said it all? Okay. I think we're ready for the vote.
To refer it back.
Yep, the vote we're taking right now is to refer back to committee.
Motion passes 10 to 1.
All right, thank you very much. We are moving on. We're now on to item number 211109F. It's another resolution from the Finance Committee approving a modification of the 2022 budget, transit fuel system upgrade. I would looks like I have a motion by Rasmussen and a second by Martins. Any discussion? Not seeing any.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 11 to 0.
All right, thank you. We're now into file number 031111. It's a joint resolution from the Human Resources and Finance Committees authorizing a 2% general wage adjustment for non-represented employees effective July 24th, 2022. It looks like we have a motion from Herbst and a second by Lukens. Any discussion here? Alder Larson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is this for a year then? How long is this term? I mean, the 2% raise, is this for a year, 2 years?
It's a, what is it?
So it's basically a cost of living increase, so it builds someone's salary permanently.
Okay, it's a cost of living increase. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep. Any other, Alder Killian?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And in HR, I had supported this and will support it again. And historically, there'd been some concerns about adjustments to non-represented employees, compensation vis-a-vis similar things with represented or union employees. And one reason I find this equitable is we were informed that, other relevant unions to the municipality had negotiated or secured similar increases percentage-wise. So this does seem to be, even though they were done in different ways, it does seem to be rather uniform and fair in that manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? I think we're ready to vote.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 11 to 0.
All right, thank you very much. We are now on to file number 120219. It's another joint resolution from Human Resources and Finance Committee approving the creation of a retirement notice incentive. It looks like we have a motion from Lukens and a second from Herbst. Any discussion on this? I'm not seeing any.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 11 to 0.
All right, thank you. We are now on to file number 211109. It's a joint resolution from Human Resources and Finance Committee approving the modification of the 2022 budget for the compensation study. I would entertain a motion. Looks like I have a motion from Rasmussen and a second from Herbst. Any discussion? I'm not seeing any.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 11 to 0.
Thank you. All right, we have file number 220705. It's an ordinance from Plan Commission, rezoning 520 North First Avenue from a two-flat residential zoning district to an urban mixed-use zoning district. I would entertain a motion. I have a motion from Herbst and a second from Denny. Any discussion? Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. Earlier this afternoon, we had received an email communication from the city assessor recommending against this particular zoning change, looking at the future taxable value of the site, assuming that it would perhaps become a parking lot or, some other sort of adjacent property that supports the Bridge Street mission. Although I think that the work of the Bridge Street mission is important and the need for their services grows every day. And I guess I would be interested in hearing from our representative on the Plan Commission as to what the discussion was there.
Okay, so we have a couple, I guess that's Alder Watson and me. I don't know if would you like to start? I know I'm trying to think back on this discussion.
I think it was suggested that we go that direction because that's more of a new, zoning option, and it would give the opportunity to have mixed use, which I think is more preferable. I do know that there was discussion that a parking lot is not preferred, and I think, other options would be there. So I'm not as concerned about the parking lot because I don't think Plan will be very excited about that. The only, I don't know if you
Go
have-
ahead.
No, that's all I remember.
Okay. Oh. Any questions? Alder McElhaney.
I understand if Plan isn't amenable to a parking lot, but if it's permitted in this, we would have a hard time to stop it. So is that permitted in this type of zoning? It seemed to be that was what the memo was saying, so.
I don't know. I know Brad's not here. I don't know if there's other. I'm looking at Eric because he also was at Plan Commission.
Yeah, I believe the discussion that we had with Bill Hebert was, and I'll verify this and get 100% confirmation, but I thought that a parking lot in that area would need a conditional use. So it
Oh, yeah,
wouldn't-
the conditional.
Yeah, and I believe that
I
was
remember
it. But
we
I
had
will
that talk.
confirm that with him and get an email out to the council. Okay.
Thank you. Alder Denny.
If this isn't urgent, is it appropriate to send it back to committee to give us a better opinion?
Do you want that from committee or do you want that from staff? We could just hold it over to the next council meeting.
Do I need to make an amendment for that?
A motion to lay on the table till the next council meeting would be appropriate under that circumstance.
So urgency is not, we're not urgent.
I haven't heard that we were.
Lacking urgency, then I'll motion that we put this on the table for
Okay.
staff to review.
So we have a motion to table this until our next council meeting. Oh,
He didn't say for a time definite, and you said till the next council meeting, but is that part of your motion that you're laying it on the table indefinitely for staff to review or until the next council meeting? Or some other time?
If we can get the information by next council meeting, is that appropriate to ask?
I think so. I think if you say indefinitely, it means next term. So I think we'd prefer not that. So we have a motion to lay on the table for until the next council meeting. Is there a second? I have a second by Alder Larson. We're typing it in here. All right, so that's what, what just happened?
I want to clear. Oh, discuss.
Okay. All right.
Motion by Denny, seconded by Larson.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion about laying this on the table for the next council, or are we ready to vote? It looks like we're ready to vote.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 11-0.
All righty, expect that next meeting. All right, next up is file number 220709. It's a resolution from the Economic Development Committee approving the sale of a city-owned building and property at 180 East Wausau Avenue to Ash Properties LLC with deed restrictions to establish a public indoor green space business. I have a motion and by Rasmussen and a second by Henke. Any discussion here? Alder Killian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one quick question. You know, it was, I think the language was a little different when agendized in ED, and it was essentially confined to taking action on the deed restrictions. And so in this case, it feels like perhaps that was just made a little more clear because we're approving the sale with deed restrictions. My question related to had the body taken up the approval of the sale at a prior meeting, or tonight, what are we really approving the sale with deed restrictions? I mean, it wouldn't really make any difference to me on my vote. I was just trying to clarify that. Thank you.
I'm looking at our city attorney here.
I don't believe I drafted this, but I believe I did review it. So let me take a look at the, therefore be it resolved. The city does approve the sale for $40,000, subject to the attached deed restrictions, and instruct staff to execute the necessary documents for the sale of the property. So you are approving the sale to the proposers for the $40,000 with the attached deed restrictions.
And my question, and sorry for the,
I'm sorry,
this
go
is
ahead.
convoluted a little bit. Had that sale been approved at a prior meeting and we're essentially adding deed restrictions now?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if it was approved. Does anybody else remember if it was, the sale was approved at a prior council
I'm gonna
meeting?
invite
I didn't bring the
Randy up to kind of talk us
history
through
on
this.
that or the packet if it's not in there.
Happy to provide any insight I can. Going back to would have been a month ago, your meeting where you approved moving forward with the proposal. Part of the end of that was negotiating the sale. So this would be, we went through the deed restrictions, through Economic Development Committee, and kind of a continuation of that discussion.
Thank you. So if I understand it, then the deal had been approved, so to speak, and this would be the property sale itself related to that deal?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. I do recall from the ED committee that we had accepted the proposal from the RFP, and then part of that approval was directing staff to execute the appropriate documents for the transfer of the property, which means sale. So I think it was our intention to do both. So,
I guess we're making you vote twice on the same item is what you're telling us.
this all incorporates the whole thing, so I think we're okay.
All right. All right. We all seem comfortable. Yeah? Okay. I think we're ready to vote.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 9-2.
All right. Thank you. Next up, I am requesting that we suspend the Rule 6B filing. This does require 2/3 vote majority. I have a motion by Watson and a second by Lukens. You don't get to discuss this.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 11-0.
All right, thank you. Rule is suspended. We are now on to file number 211109G. This is a resolution from the Finance Committee approving the modification of the 2022 budget, parks and drinking fountains. I know they voted on it. I think it was unanimous, but I don't recall. Yes, okay. I have a motion by Herbst and a second by Watson. Alder Rasmussen.
This one is a good example. Tonight, we approved this unanimously. This moves this project forward, but has found an alternate fund source, and so it removes this project from ARPA funding. So it saves ARPA for other uses. Thank you.
All right. Any further questions or comments? I think we're ready to vote.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 11-0.
All right, thank you. We are now into file number 160704. It's another resolution from the Finance Committee authorizing the execution of the Department of Natural Resources Principal Forgiven Financial Assistance Agreement. I have a motion by Rasmussen and a second by Watson. Any comments? Or nope.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 11-0.
All right, thank you. All right, file number 220707. It's a resolution from the Finance Committee approving the 2022 State Operating Assistance Grant Agreement for Metro Ride. I would entertain a motion. I have a motion by Lukens and a second by Herbst. I think this was another unanimous vote. Any discussion? I'm not seeing any.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 11-0.
All right, thank you. All right, file number 220708. It's a resolution from the Finance Committee approving the 2022 State Paratransit Supplemental Aid Grant Agreement. I have a motion by Lukens and a second by Watson. Another unanimous approval from Finance. I don't see anybody wishing to speak, so I think we're ready to vote.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 11-0.
All right, we reached the end here. If anybody in the public didn't get their opportunity for public comment, you're welcome to take your 3 minutes. Otherwise, I would entertain our last item, a motion to adjourn. I have a motion by Herbst and a second by Larson. All those in favor can signify by saying aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much, everyone. We're adjourned.
No, I'm not.